Reboots are supposed to save a franchise, but sometimes they lock the door behind them. When a comeback spends a decade in development, misses sales targets by half, or arrives with promises it can't keep, the result isn't a revival, it's a quiet funeral that nobody wants to plan. Tonight we're walking through 9 reboots that hurt their own series, and exactly what it would take to bring them back from the dead. And stay to the end. 2 of these brands might be staging a comeback where you least expect it. Duke Nukem Forever, the legend that turned to stone. You can't talk about reboots gone wrong without Duke Nukem Forever, the Guinness Certified Marathon, officially announced in 1997, released in June 2011 to 14 years and 43 days later. The problem wasn't just the wait, it was what came after, a shooter preserved in amber. Critics called out the long loads, clunky feel, and design that already felt a decade older than its peers. Nostalgia can be a spice. Here it was the whole meal. The result? A brand associated less with swagger and more with stagnation. But that isn't the whole story. In June 2025, producer Adi Shankar acquired rights to develop a Duke Nukem TV series. Proof that the character still has cultural oxygen, even if a game's not on deck. If Duke ever returns to games, he'll need razor-sharp satire and airtight boomer shooter pacing, a mirror held up to macho excess, not a museum exhibit to it. Next up, a franchise that hit good reviews but still got labeled a miss. Dragon Age: The Veilguard, when good wasn't good enough. After a decade away, Dragon Age: The Veilguard launched on October 31st, 2024, and attracted roughly 5 million players in its first quarter. Unfortunately, EA says that was about 50% below its target. That gap fueled a new debate: is single-player RPG enough in 2025? EA's leadership suggested it underperformed in part because it lacked shared world or live service hooks. Critics were split on tone and systems. Some praised the action, combat, and scope. Others said the writing and choices felt thinner than the series' roots. The lesson here isn't make everything a service. It's that expectations for budgets, for audiences, for day one scale can bury a good game under the label of failure. If Dragon Age thrives again, it'll be by doubling down on what only BioWare can do. Consequential choices, textured companion arcs, and tactical depth that doesn't drown in trend chasing. But sometimes it isn't expectations, it's a studio's bandwidth. Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Flight, then Grounded. Catalyst delivered what fans love: clean, high-velocity parkour across a pristine dystopia, even if the story landed soft. Yet the real roadblock isn't a review, it's focus. In 2022, DICE's GM said the studio was only focusing on Battlefield 2042, explicitly confirming that projects like Mirror's Edge were on the back burner. EA has swatted down sequel rumors before, and the original was even delisted alongside older Battlefield titles. If Faith runs again, she'll likely need a tighter, time trial-led structure with handcrafted routes, less open-world bloat, more pure flow. Until then, Mirror's Edge is the rare series where fans know exactly what they want, and the studio simply doesn't have time to make it. From a paused parkour icon to a reboot that became a punchline, Bionic Commando, 2009. The twist heard round the internet. Sometimes one moment defines a reboot. For Bionic Commando, it was the late game reveal that the hero's bionic arm literally contains his wife's essence. The wife arm twist that became internet shorthand for an unearned reveal. Even without the plot controversy, the numbers were grim. Only approximately 27,000 US units sold in its first month across PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. And that's the second way a reboot can end a franchise. Not with outrage, but with apathy at the register. If Capcom ever revives it, the path is obvious. Go back to Rearmid's snappy 2D design. Let the swing be the star and leave the meme in the past. Open worlds next. 2 of them that forgot how to surprise us. Saints Row 2022 and Crackdown 3. When more stuff isn't more fun. The Saints Row reboot checks every box for a modern sandbox and somehow still feels empty. Reviews slam the bugs and the safe, serious-ish tone, Embracer's CEO later called the fanbase partially polarized, and a year after release, Volition was closed in a massive restructuring. Sales scraped in around, 7 million? Not disastrous, but not 100 million budget territory either. Crackdown 3, meanwhile, spent years hyping cloud-powered destruction, and then limited most of it to a bare-bones multiplayer mode, leaving the campaign feeling like a 2010 time capsule with better lighting. Both prove the same point. If your hook isn't everywhere the player looks, it's nowhere. A comeback would need fewer map icons and more toys that collide in unexpected ways. Systems, not checklists. Now, the frigid frontier that thawed too late. Lost Planet 3, outsourced, undersold, and out in the cold. Capcom handed Lost Planet 3 to Spark Unlimited, and the gamble didn't land. The game moved roughly 300,000 units worldwide against expectations, and the series iced over. Outsourcing isn't inherently a death sentence, but if your identity is mechs in a hostile climate, you can't sideline mechs or flatten the level design. There's a sliver of hope. Capcom has been signaling interest in reviving dormant IP. Fans keep putting Lost Planet on those wish lists. If it returns, imagine survival-focused co-op in dynamic blizzards, hard-earned thermal management, and mechs that feel dangerous to pilot, and priceless when you master them. You know, from ice to smoke and fog, we head to London, 1886. The Order 1886, blockbuster looks, bite-sized game. As a PS4 showpiece, The Order 1886 was breathtaking. As a $60 game, many found it thin, short, QTE heavy, light on replay value. Ahead of launch, a 5-hour playthrough leaked. The studio said typical playtime was closer to 8 to 10 hours. Any sequel hopes dimmed further when Ready at Dawn, the studio behind The Order and later Meta's Echo VR, was shut down by Meta in August 2024. A co-founder later said Sony passed on a sequel largely due to the game's reception. Could the IP work today? Absolutely. Victorian tech noir, lichen hunts, and investigation-driven cases are a natural fit if the next entry trusts gameplay to carry the same weight as the visuals. One last stop, the art house shooter that split the room. Kane and Lynch 2, Dog Days, grit as a design choice. Dog Days embraced a grimy, deliberately bad camera, as if filmed on a jittery handheld, aesthetic bravery that some loved, and others literally couldn't stomach. With a brief runtime and conventional cover shooting, it never broke out beyond a cult. Realistically, the series is parked. When IO Interactive split from Square Enix, it didn't retain the Kane and Lynch rights, and today it's busy crafting a new James Bond origin story in 007 First Light. If the brand ever returns, it needs clarity. Keep the grit, lose the nausea, and give us a heist structure where plans fall apart in ways the player can wrestle back under control. Sometimes a single game ends a series. More often, the autopsy lists other causes, budgets that need instant mega hits, shifting studio priorities, consolidation, and trends that change faster than development cycles. Veilguard being called a failure at 5 million players captures the moment we're living in. But IP never truly dies. Duke Nukem's TV move keeps the name in the conversation, and IO's Bond could pull a Hitman, turning thoughtful systems into a modern icon. The lesson from these reboots isn't never try again, it's know what made you special, build modern systems around that heartbeat, and don't promise magic you can't ship.